Hello everyone, welcome back to the PhilFac Philological Academy of Linguistic Analysis. Today we're going to roll up the sleeves to get down to work for a very interesting topic. We're going to look at two Japanese online newspapers, two Korean online newspapers, and again the Sydney Morning Herald. That's right, we're going to Asia. The main topic I would say around the world at the moment is the war in the Ukraine. But let's see what's happening in Asia with these newspapers. I'll be honest with you, I can't speak or read in Japanese. I can't speak or read in Korean, so it's going to be interesting analysing it. But I think we're still going to be able to get a reasonable feel for just what kind of, I suppose, picture definitely is being created on the front page. And then I did use Google Translate to have a quick look at the titles. So we're still going to give it a score, and we're going to see, we looked at the English-speaking newspapers in England and America, and we've had a look at some of the non-English language newspapers in Europe, and found them to be a little bit more neutral, still going into the positive zone than the English-speaking ones. And then we've looked at one Asian newspaper so far, if the Sydney Morning Herald isn't one. That was the Xinhua of China, and it was quite neutral. But let's see, so here's a Japanese one. I'll be honest with you, I don't know if this is a business newspaper or what, because there's a very big focus in this front page on business. This one here is just about the price of oil, as you might have guessed from the picture. So the main picture story is nothing to do with the war, so that gets a big 0. If you come down here, that seems to be the stock market, which is fascinating really, because you can see green. But if we zoom in, then you can see the little minus sign there. It means it's a drop. So why is it green but it's going down? Because you're in Asia. That's right. The colors are different. It's really cool, isn't it? If we go off to the right here, we can see this very concerned looking Asian businessman, Japanese probably. And there again you see it's green. So the stock market green in Australia would be wonderful. But here again you can see that minus. The stock market's not going so well. So the main news centers around financial matters, which is why I don't know, but then it's got this big Paralympics is up there. Anyway, the internet site that I used to find this newspaper said that it was the most read online newspaper in Japan. And then here you can see there is a bit of news in the Ukraine here. That Japanese title translates into a nuclear power plant starting on fire. A bit of emotions there. I'll give it a 2. But if we zoom out again, then we can see that really is way down the bottom. It's a little one. There's not a big focus on that. So overall, that just gets a 2. So if you remember, like before when we were looking at The Guardian, it was going into 40. The New York Times a couple of days was going to 40. This one from today, I think about 10 days into the war, we can see in the Japanese newspaper it's not a big story. Okay, let's have a look at the second Japanese news. You can see the main story isn't about Ukraine. There is something here. It's quite a negative picture. So I'll give it like a 4. And the title's quite strong, so I'll give it a 5. And so that comes to 9. But everything else is like 0, 0, 0. And this section is worth 2. So I don't know. Overall, that would be like a +2 or a +3. So not very strong at all. However, when I took a picture a bit earlier, this is a picture I just took there. When I took a picture a bit earlier, this story was the main news in this Japanese newspaper. So here, so you can see the picture's quite a bit bigger. And so what I gave it here was like a 5 for that one and a 5 for the title, which is quite negative. About, people fleeing, the human corridor being a joke. So that would really whack it up to a 50. So a massive discrepancy. You've got 50 if I opened the newspaper, I don't know, 2 hours ago, and then now it drops down to a 2 or 3. So that's another factor to keep in mind when thinking about the emotional level being raised in the newspaper. How long does that type of picture stay up there? Is it followed by another story connected with the same issue? And what I've noticed with these Asian newspapers that might have a story up there, well, maybe the Sydney Morning Herald, is it can move off fairly easily. But let's take an average of that. So that's +2, that's 3. And then if we come back, that was +50. Wow. So the average would be 25, which puts it where, I think 25 is where the New York Times was initially to start off with. So it's kind of raising some emotions, not too strong, depending on when you open the newspaper. The other Japanese ones, let's go Korea. Oh, Korea. Okay, so this is the most popular Korean newspaper according to this website. And you can see here straight away, highly negative. Let's give it it's a blown up tank. Let's give it a 5. Yeah, because there are no dead people, thankfully, you know. So I'll give that a 5. It doesn't go into reptilian, I think. And then this one here is an interesting title. It was just about like Putin being heartbroken. It's kind of strange. But interestingly enough, the whole article was just about how much money is being spent to conduct this war. So to me, that seemed to be, is that emotional? So it had Putin is heartbroken. It was trying to create, you know, some sort of emotion there. Money being spent, money being spent. And when I looked at the article, it seemed to be pushing towards there's so much money being spent, this can't continue. So, like, you know, if you was paying for this, you might start to get angry. But as a South Korean reading this, I think, you know, oh, okay, they can't keep spending that much money, therefore this will end. I think it's pushing someone towards being a bit calmer. So I'm going to give it a minus. You know, I know that sounds a bit strange. I'm going to give it a -2. I just feel it's going to push someone to be calmer rather than more agitated. So overall up a 3 there, multiplied by 5, 15. You can see this one here looks like some horrible bomb, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire, but it's not. It's not. That's just about a fire in Korea. So that's a major distractor. It's really taking away from that focus on war. There's something here that's happening in Korea as well. So look, I don't know. Let's just keep it at 0. So that one's like 15. So you can see there that South Korean newspaper not really pushing up the emotions much. Let's go to the next one. And this is the second most popular South Korean online newspaper, and it's talking about Shinpun Hakin Tui Palkil. So I tried to learn Korean twice and failed both times, being a Philfuckovitz and not a good philologist or linguist. I can kind of read the letters a little bit, and that's about it. But yeah, I mean, obviously you can guess that that's COVID. I can't see the word COVID anywhere. Gil. Maybe Palkil is Palkil. Palkil. Do you think that's COVID in Korean? Palkil. Anyway, we'll look that up later. Okay, and then around, geez, I don't know. There's that oil thing again. Like for those guys there, yeah, of course, South Korea, Japan. Bit poor when it comes to natural energy resources. So big news for them. Probably COVID, people putting on masks. I don't think there's anything at all about the war in the Ukraine. Okay, so we'll just leave there as a big fat 0. So we can kind of see, like, if you did open that Japanese newspaper at a particular time, whooshka, but if not, there really is a drift away from what is actually a war in Eastern Europe, which kind of makes sense. Let's have a look at the Sydney Morning Herald. Is it an Asian newspaper? I think it is, because Australia plays in the Asian area of FIFA for the Football World Cup. So I would say that makes it an Asian country. When we look at the faces, you might disagree. These guys don't look Asian, but I don't know. I think Australians nowadays, 21st century Australia, it's an Asian country. Okay, so this one here, disaster zone, it's all negative, vowing to avoid repeating past mistakes, an emotional picture. So, you know, it's raising the emotions. It's not going into reptilian, but we're just going to give it a 4. But it's not about that topic. It's already getting on something else. But rising quickly is more major flooding forecasts. More major, oh my goodness me. 5, very serious. 5, very serious. I love the Australian newspaper. Very serious. Is that the only comment the guy gave? What do you think? It's very serious. What about the future outlook? It's very serious. Oh my goodness me, what a country. Okay, and then the sad news, warning, Australian cricketer, there he is, died. Yeah, really sad. Body to be flown back home tomorrow. So he obviously died overseas. Natural causes, and there are his kids. Poor kids. Anyway, hopefully things will get better. Anything about the war? Nope. Down here just a little bit. Anti-war protesters detained in Russia. So that's quite interesting, really. You know, the other day, these floods started and they pushed the war off the front page, but then the next day the war came back, and then now the floods are back. Perhaps, you know, they could have shown a picture up here of Russian protesters being arrested by the police, but maybe if I'd opened it a little bit earlier, it would have been there. But again, you know, get off the front page. So that one there, I mean, it's all emotional, but it's got nothing to do with anything that's happening in Eastern Europe, so I'll give it 0. So there it is, guys, a summary. It does look like that things are moving off the front page when it comes to the war in Ukraine and Asian newspapers that we looked at today. Obviously, things might depend on what happens in these countries and what happens in Eastern Europe. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Look forward to seeing you in the next one.